Welcome to Dave Talks Ball in this November 25th, 2024 episode, folks. I am here an hour earlier tonight because of the Maui Invitational. I'm going to go live after Auburn plays Iowa State. We'll talk a little college basketball here soon, but we got to get right to it. And to my point, I wanted to go a little earlier just so I could get in the hour and then obviously not miss the first half of that game since I'll be reacting to it. But, man, Landmine Saturday turned into a full-fledged World War III in the SEC. Again, I think a lot of people predicted there was going to be madness in the Big Ten. Obviously didn't happen, folks. It obviously didn't happen. It was in this conference alone. Bama goes down. We'll discuss. Ole Miss goes down in Gainesville. We'll discuss. And then A&M goes down on the Plains. Again, we all – outside of the Alabama game, we all kind of saw past the victory. That was the biggest shocker, I would say, so of those big three upsets. Again, Florida have been playing good football. We'll discuss. A&M at Auburn in November. Nobody was looking past that. Let's call a spade there. Nobody was looking past that across the board. But this episode, we will talk just feast week in college basketball, obviously the Week 13 recap in football. And we'll do a quick look ahead to Rivalry Week. And I'm actually going to be doing a show. Keep it normal. Unless it changes, follow me on social media at Mock10 Sports. But I still plan on doing the Thanksgiving night show. Unless something comes up, I may move it to Wednesday. Well, we'll see. We'll play that one by ear. Maybe Wednesday. I'll keep you updated on SEC Unfiltered and on at Mock10 Sports. But first, let's get to it. Before we get moving on, this episode of Dave Talks Ball is brought to you by our buddies over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com and use code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup, folks. Again, I've done numerous of these kind of pick-em challenges. Very fun. Encourage you to go use them, especially with college football season. We're not far off, guys. Amazing college football season is over. Again, you always just blink. It's like Labor Day weekend's here. And then you blink and it's Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, my gosh, what happened? It's wild. It's wild. But, again, this is my favorite week of the year. It really is. It really is. You got feast week, some phenomenal college basketball games. I mean, I know it's not SEC, but if you missed UConn-Memphis today, phenomenal game. Dan Hurley was unhinged. He was completely unhinged. And then we got rivalry weekend in college football. But let's go back. Let's take a look back this past week. Again, as the weeks go on, I'm not just going to hammer just all these past week games. It's recaps. I'm going to hit the main points, the meat and potatoes of this. But let's get right to it. Oklahoma stuns, absolutely stuns Alabama in Norman. First, let's give Oklahoma their flowers here. Oklahoma gets the 24-3 win. Phenomenal game plan on both sides of the football there from Joe John Finley and Brent Venables and Zach Alley, the defensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Kind of Glenn Schumann to Brent Venables. Kind of like Glenn Schumann to Kirby Smart, Zach Alley to Brent Venables. Kind of what it is. The relationship from back when Venables was the Clemson coordinator. You can tell they had an off week. You could tell in the very first check mark they put on in game planning for this. Jalen Milroe is not going to beat us. And that's where Alabama went wrong. We'll talk about that one here in just a minute. But give them credit. This was a veteran defense they had not been struggling defensively. You got Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, senior night, Memorial Stadium. They were going to play well at the very least defensively, and anyone who was telling you differently was wild. It was crazy. I said Alabama was going to win, but I knew this would be a hard-fought game against Alabama's offense against Oklahoma's defense because I knew LSU's an improved offense, folks. LSU's an improved defense, folks. Do not get me wrong. They're an improved defense. But literally, they could have just woke up and filled it 11 men and added in Blake Baker and Bo Davis. They would have had to have been better than last year. They had to be better. So you taking the same game plan and trying to run that against Oklahoma, I bet surprised Brent Venables and Zach Alley, honestly. I honestly bet it surprised Brent Venables and Zach Alley just how simple and uncreative Alabama's game plan was. Just running Jalen Milroe over and over again. That may work against LSU, against a limited LSU personnel defensively that people I said all offseason didn't want to admit. They have the coaches. They don't have the Jimmies and Joes. They have the X's and O's right now, folks. They don't have the Jimmies and Joes. And that's wild to say at LSU, but it's just a factual thing. Just because you put on that gold, sometimes looking yellow helmet that says LSU with that tiger right there, they don't mean you're a good defensive player. It just means you play for a historically good defense. Let's call a spade here. But you can tell the seniors played with pride here for Oklahoma. That should give Oklahoma fans confidence from a Brent Venables future standpoint. Again, I'm not totally on board yet that he's the guy there. I thought Joe Castiglione's kind of contract extension in the summer was a little random to him. Again, I think this is a good leeway though. I mean, give Brent Venables credit. He said we dominated in all three phases, and they did. And I thought the offensive game plan. I know Jackson Arnold only threw for 68 yards, but it was a complimentary game plan. They did what Vanderbilt. They did what Vanderbilt did to Alabama, and what potentially Auburn could do this weekend if we're calling a spade a spade. They stayed ahead of the chains, got into 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, all manageable situations. Give Oklahoma credit, guys. That was a good game plan, good complimentary football. They dominated in all 3 games. What's next for Oklahoma? A trip to LSU to go get their 7th win of the season. They are going bowling this year, but night game at LSU. I mean, that game's kind of a toss-up. We'll look ahead to week 4, but Alabama looked completely unprepared on both sides. These are the games that you were just not accustomed to seeing under Nick Saban. You're just not. You're not used to Alabama. They had that streak going into 2021 where A&M finally ended it, not losing to unranked teams. Didn't do it until since his first year. They didn't lose these kind of games. If you played Alabama, and I'm not saying this because, hey, Kalen DeBoer's not Nick Saban. I'm not trying to be one of these crazy Feinbaum callers or these Alabama fans like that. I'm just saying this is something Alabama fans are to get accustomed to. You have 2 of them against an average, above-average teams in Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Give Vanderbilt credit. Phenomenal job for Clark Lee, but it's still an average team. If they don't beat Tennessee, they're going to finish average, 6-6. And then you lose to an Oklahoma team that can be 7-5 at best. You're not used to Alabama losing those games. That's something that's going to probably change again. Kalen DeBoer's been phenomenal in big games. Even going back to his career at Washington, 3-0 against Dan Lanning, 2-0 against Steve Sarkisian. I mean, the guy who wins big games has phenomenal game plans to open up big games outside of the Tennessee game. So it's interesting. The team, it kind of doesn't take on the faceless opponent mentality. But how do you no-show this poorly this late in the year? That's what's baffling to me. How do you no-show? I saw Tyler Booker was on the next round, and he said we were looking at external factors like the college football playoff. Come on, man. Come on. Like I picked Alabama to win, but I knew this game was going to be close because I just knew the defense was going to have a good game plan coming off a bye week. And even if they didn't have a bye week, it's too good of a defensive staff. It's too veteran of a defensive squad with Billy Bowman and Danny Stuffman, Kip Adams. You had to pick these guys that played out the freshmen. Robinson stood out at all classifications. Oklahoma dominated across the board. Alabama should be embarrassed from this performance. They should, across all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams, you got whipped. Jalen Milroe, not all his fault, but didn't play well. Thought the lack of effort trying to tackle Kip Lewis on the pick 6 was piss poor. I thought the game plan of trying to run Jalen Milroe with the lead blocker, running back with Justice Haynes or Jalen Miller was piss poor. Once Deontay Lawson went out, which long-term Alabama's national championship hopes went out the door when he got hurt. Again, they didn't give details, significant lower body injury. He's out for the year. Prayers up for him, but they can't win the national championship without him. He was their green dot guy, the helmet communication guy. Subbing Justin Jefferson is what it is. I mean, Oklahoma took advantage of Alabama in the run game. They stayed ahead of the sticks, played keep away, 2 critical turnovers by Jalen Milroe, lack of creativity in the offensive game plan. Just thought you could use the same game plan you used against LSU. No way. Can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that in this league. Everybody sees how everybody's kind of caught on to Vanderbilt defensively now. Even LSU held Vanderbilt in check. DJ Durkin and them put the blueprint out. This is a copycat sport, folks. I worked in it for 10 years. Once the blueprint's out on you, you better be able to adjust. And Alabama just seems like with Jalen Miller right now, they really don't know what they are identity-wise. Like, all right, Jalen, we rode you. We rode you all the way through the LSU game in Baton Rouge. Come on, baby. We can do it again. No, not against good schemes, not against good defensive coaches that adjust. And they had a bye week. But give Oklahoma their credit, getting 24-3 win over Alabama. Florida spoils. They're another team that spoils the playoff hopes. Florida spoils Ole Miss's playoff hopes. Another team here, Ole Miss, refuses to run the football with their running backs, just like Alabama. Florida getting a big win here, beats Ole Miss 24-17. Let's give Florida, we always give the winner their praise first. How about the turnaround in Gainesville? Really, since that loss to Texas A&M and heading to the bye week, where everyone, myself included, Billy Napier was like, that was the best bye week I've ever been associated with. Things have changed since then. They have DJ Lagway playing. Obviously, has changed the mindset of this team. But even in losses, at Tennessee, could have lost in overtime. Thought he should have went for 2, but it is what it is. Georgia, DJ Lagway plays. I'm not totally saying they're going to win that game, but it's definitely much closer. They had some momentum that one. Even in their losses outside of the Texas game, which you're playing with your third-string quarterback, they were competitive, and you could sense they were still playing. They had that chip on their shoulder. But the running game was key to this one. Florida got it going on the ground across the board. Really kind of dominated, if you want to be completely honest, against a really good Ole Miss defensive front who shut down a lot of teams this year. Look at it. We're looking at it right now. Florida went for 165 yards on 44 carries for 3.8 yards per attempt. Ole Miss averaged more yards per attempt, just 0.2 more with 4. But still, let's call a spade, folks. Florida got it done with Montrell Johnson on the ground. That was the key to victory against a really good Ole Miss defensive front. Had a good game plan. DJ Lagway's numbers aren't going to make you want to send him to New York in a couple of weeks. 10 for 17, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception. But it was just overall getting the ground game going was phenomenal. It really was. I give them credit, give them their flowers. Elijah Badger got going from a wide receiver skill standpoint. Defensively, you had a couple guys make some plays. Bryce Thornton in the secondary, as initially comes to mind, did a phenomenal job. It's just Florida's finding ways to win this game. They really were. You're at 6 wins. You're favored to go get the 7th in Tallahassee. They've completely turned this around since that bye week. This whole season, they have completely turned this whole season around since this bye week. When everyone, including myself, was making fun of him, saying it was the best one they've had. They kind of came together since then. Now, again, I'm not saying Billy Napier is the long-term answer. I know a lot of people are like, man, Scott Strickland and Billy Napier look like geniuses. They're playing well right now. You got to give them that. Doesn't mean you're the long-term answer. They should go get 6. Should go get 7 with a win in Tallahassee, and that's what's next for the Gators. Now, I would say Coach of the Year SEC candidates in top 3 would obviously have to be Clark Lee. Anytime you get Vanderbilt to 6, Shane Beamer looking like potentially South Carolina could get to 9 with a win over Clemson this week. And if they get to 7, Billy Napier. Those are my top 3. Mike Elko would have been in it. They lost this week. I even think, call me crazy, I think Kalen DeBoer, if he'd have won the SEC in year 1, would have been up in the conversation. Obviously not now. But I think it's a 3-man race now. I think you got to put Billy Napier in it is my main point of this. Billy Napier's got to be the main person. Let me rephrase that. Not the main person. I'd give it to Clark Lee. Anytime in this day and age, NIL, that Vanderbilt gets to 6 wins, folks, that's your Southeastern Coach of the Year. You can take that to the bank. Ole Miss, what was the game plan in the run game? What has Ulysses Bentley done to not get carries? What has Ulysses Bentley done not to get carries? You have J.J. Pegues getting more carries. The defensive tackle getting more carries than Ulysses Bentley. And Lane Kiffin said today it's just been inconsistencies. It's nothing off the field. He's been a good kid. Something's off, though. Something's off. Something's severely off. That's a little strange to me. I don't know. It's just, how do you not use him? How do you not get any more out of Amos? The Rashad Amos kid they took from Miami to Ohio. Did you just misevaluate him? I know you took him late. Something's got to be going. Let's call a spade, guy. Let's say the quiet. Let's say the thing nobody wants to say out loud. In hindsight, it's always 2020. You missed Quinshon Judkins. Maybe you should have paid him that $800,000 that he ultimately got from Ohio State that you were paying him to. To be fair, from what I've heard, Ole Miss offered him just a little less more than even Ohio State ended up paying. And now, I don't know if I'd have paid that for a running back either. Again, hindsight's 2020. But kind of as we keep pulling back layers of this season, if Quinshon Judkins goes and has a big playoff run, Big Ten title game against Oregon, they get revenge against the Dogs. Again, a big playoff run, and Ole Miss is sitting at home at 9-3. People are going to be talking. People are going to be like, we let that guy walk. But again, he had issues within that locker room. Players didn't like him. Hindsight 2020, I agree with what they did. And Dave, you're an idiot. They went 9-3. He wasn't good in that locker room. But it's going to be up for discussion, guys. It's going to be up for discussion. Trey Harris went out. Wide receiver re-injured the same groin injury he had. Again, you saw it drop pass. They reviewed it for a fumble. They ruled it incomplete. Reese McIntyre center went out. Ole Miss just a lot of breaks did not go their way this time. The offense just getting too cute at times. You have J.J. Pegues lined up in shotgun on 4th and 1 with Jackson Dart is a lead fullback almost, and you run almost like a stretch play where you're running with like a 320-pound man. It can't put his foot in the ground and get north and south. Like, what are you doing? That's too cute. Run the football with a running back. It's what I scream at Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer about as well. Lane Kiffin gets too cute for his own good. And it's a guy traditionally likes to get it going in the run game. He traditionally does. Defensively, wasn't great either. One of their worst performances. Gave up too many yards on the ground. We were praising Florida, Montrell Johnson. This is one of Pete Golden's worst performances. Again, I think Pete Golden's done a phenomenal job this year. Just because I think he struggled at times at Alabama doesn't make him a bad defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. I think people struggle with that. Alabama fans and Ole Miss fans who go back on social media is like, well, since he wasn't great for us and maybe limited us from a national championship perspective, it means he can't be a good coordinator at Ole Miss. And Ole Miss fans say, well, since he's good for us, he had to be good at Alabama, and y'all just underutilize him. Two things can be true at once, folks. It's a great year for them personnel-wise. They upped that ante. Pete Golden did a good job. Just on Saturday against Florida, they struggled, especially to stopping the run. Defensively wasn't great. They gave up too many chunk plays. But where does Ole Miss go from here? I mean, you got an Egg Bowl coming up. How fired up are you really going to be in an Egg Bowl where you just brought in a lot of transfers? Princely Umamalayan, Walter Nolan, Trey Amos, keep naming Juice Wells. How Daquan Wright at tight end spot. How many of those guys do you think give a crap about the Egg Bowl? And this is universally in rivalry week. Again, I hate to bust people's bubble, but I worked in the industry, college athletics for 10 years, worked in college football for 10 years. I understand kind of how this goes. These guys don't get real motivated for this, folks. Like it is the rival again. I don't think rivalry week's dead. I love it. I said this is my favorite week of the year when you sprinkle in the feast week in college basketball as well. But again, you love rivalries that have hate. Again, I'm not a hateful person. Love people. I'm just saying you like your past. You like that's why we love Lakers Celtics. Larry didn't like Magic at the time. Magic didn't like Larry. James Worthy didn't like Kevin McHale, etc. Go Dennis Johnson. You love these rivalries. Yankees, Red Sox back in the early 2000s. They didn't like each other. We don't really have that in college football anymore. And I think a little bit's why, because the transfer portal. Like my point being, how fired up is Ole Miss this week? Again, crazier things have happened. Maybe they backdoor their way into 9-3, and I would say Ole Miss at 9-3 should get in ahead of South Carolina and Alabama. I think again, Ole Miss has the upside to win the whole thing. It's wild to say they've lost 3 games. I just think this roster, they did a good job of putting it together. Just somewhere you get lost in the sauce of not using the run game, man. Like, what did Ulysses Bentley do? Maybe he did do something I don't know, and it's fair. I just like to know. It's not. I don't have a right to know that. It's Lane Kiffin's team. But still, just thought it was interesting. Mississippi State on Friday night. Egg Bowl got moved to Friday night, folks. I hate it. That's another thing that pisses me off. That's what I loved as well. That topped off my Thanksgiving night. They moved it. Can't believe it. Auburn sends A&M's playoff hopes home. They did, folks. They did. Auburn gets the 43-41 win in quadruple overtime. Let's start with Auburn, the winners. We knew they had it in them at some point. That's why the line was 2.5, opened up at 3, if I remember. Everyone was a little fishy. It's a little fishy. Let's call it a spade. Let's call it a spade a spade. Everybody thought it was a little fishy, but Peyton Thorne, best game in an Auburn uniform, in my opinion. 19 for 31, 301, 2 touchdowns, had an interception. But what do you know? It's a Peyton Thorne. He's gonna have an interception. But I thought it was one of his better games. Picked up a big 4th and 2 to extend the game, made some plays, got knocked down, got back up. I love the adversity. I respect it. That was a phenomenal game. Give him his flowers from that. I thought the defense was really good. Jalen McLeod, 10 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs. And maybe really good is an overstatement. They gave up some plays. Marcel Reed got comfortable a little bit. Outside of Jalen McLeod, though, no one could really get a pass rush. But they did make plays at times, got off to a really good start. Blowing a 21-0 lead, though. If you're an Auburn fan, you're like, again, how are we going to do this? But what does this mean for Hugh Freeze and Auburn? It means you're 1 win away if you beat Alabama from getting to 6 wins. I think this can help you in recruiting because it was a really good atmosphere. Again, we knew Auburn was going to show out because, again, Auburn fans are very loyal. They love Auburn. They're going to show up. A night game in November is a top 15 team. And they did show up. Phenomenal environment from watching it on TV. Obviously, I wasn't there, but it looked like a phenomenal environment. What's next for Auburn? I hate the field storming thing at this point. It's so over you guys. Why are we storming the field if we've only got our 5th win and we just picked up a top 15 win? Like, come on, maybe the number 1 team in the country, I would get it. It's a top 15 win, though. But not trying to rain in the parade. That's just a me thing. Maybe that's just a me thing, and I'm sorry. Maybe that's just a Dave thing. I need to get over it. It's just kind of when I watch, it's like, God, why storming the field? I see people like, well, if you're an Auburn student, think about this. If you're an Auburn student that came to college in 2021, 21, 22, 23, 24, yeah, if they don't beat Alabama on Saturday, you will have never seen an Auburn team with a winning record during your 4 years at the school. I feel sorry for that boy or girl. I feel sorry for him. 4 years and you never saw your team with a winning record and you went to an SEC school like Auburn is traditionally pretty good. It's kind of depressing. Not trying to rain on the parade. But what's next for Auburn? A massive opportunity against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Probably the best chance Auburn has to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa going into the game since 14, maybe 14 with Nick Marshall, obviously Gus, Duke Williams. You got Cameron Artis-Payne at the running back spot. Kind of like those guys. CJ Uzomah was on that team, and Uzomah was on that team as well. It's back when Auburn and Gus kind of had it going. Nobody could figure it out yet. But that's probably since the last time, really outside of the 2010 Auburn, the comeback game, Alabama's dominated Auburn and Tuscaloosa since Nick Saban was there. I mean, grand total 7-7. Again, they haven't played there that long, remember, folks. They used to play in Birmingham and Legion Field for a very long time. But for a while there, until Nick Saban came, Nick Saban only lost in Tuscaloosa one time to Auburn. But they got a good opportunity here because I think Jarquez Hunter, I think Peyton Thorne in the run game, there's a lot of familiarity. Remember, Kane Womack, Bama's DC, his dad, Dave Womack, was the best DC Hugh Freeze ever had, best defensive coordinator Hugh Freeze had at Ole Miss. So there's some familiarity there. I think there's some stuff Auburn can do in the run game that can give Alabama fits, especially with Deontay Lawson out, guys. I think that's really going to hurt Alabama, the inside linebacker spot. And it was Alabama's motivation. If this was a Nick Saban-led team, I'd be a little more confident. I just don't know how a Kalen DeBoer team is going to react. Again, same boat as Ole Miss. What's the Iron Bowl? Again, the Iron Bowl does mean something, but what does it mean to some of these other guys? Again, when the playoffs are out, again, not saying they're going to mail it in, but let's just see what it looks like. Again, I don't know. I know what a Nick Saban team looks like off a loss like that. I just don't know about a Kalen DeBoer team. Let's go to the next one. Texas controls Big Blue. Texas beats Kentucky. Gets the big win. Oh, sorry. I got to go back for a minute, guys. I apologize. I apologize to you Texas A&M fans. You probably don't want to hear it, but I didn't even discuss the Aggies. How could we do that? How could we miss it? I was all caught up in Auburn, but we all saw this potentially coming. Again, everybody gave South A&M crap for losing to South Carolina. That was just a tough SEC game. South Carolina's ended up being a pretty good football team. Let's all call a spade a spade. This was the game that you're like, this would be really Aggie. And that's what they did. The slow start is what did them in. That's where they ultimately lost the game, getting down 21-0 on the road. Can't do that. Loss in the winner. Marcel Reed, I thought was not bad. Marcel Reed overall, I thought kind of came into his own, completing 22 of 35 passes, 297 and 3 touchdowns. He was also solid on the ground. 21 rushes for 66 carries. I thought he did pretty well. I didn't think he was that bad, really. I really did not think he was that bad. I thought the defense let him down. And again, some of that was Auburn's game plan and scheme. You knew it was going to come together at some point. Auburn played a really good game. Then they blow a 21-0 lead, and you're like, what is going on? From an A&M standpoint, just guys like Nick Scorton didn't stand out. Nothing happened. Nobody was making plays on defense. I don't know. It was the worst defensive game A&M's played all year, in my opinion. They really struggled. You did not see that many points. And I know they wouldn't have quadruple overtime, but even before overtime, both these teams are going back on each other. Just for A&M, playoff hopes. Again, you control your own destiny, though. If A&M beats Texas this week, then goes and to the SEC championship game and beats Georgia, they're in the SEC. They're the college football playoff rep from the SEC. A&M's not out. A&M's not out. To my point, Auburn sends A&M's playoff hopes home. They go home. It's a playoff game now for A&M. Marcel Reed said that today when I watched their press conference. When I was watching A&M's press, just kind of see what the vibe was going to this big one. He said, playoff starts for us this week. Playoffs start for us. That was my point in the caption. I was wondering if anybody could pick that out or not. It looks like Bo Molinari did, and I appreciate you listening, Bo. But he did say if A&M beats Texas, they play Georgia for the SEC championship. So A&M's not out. Exactly. They're not. It goes home. They get to face Texas. If they win that, they get in and they go to Atlanta for the first time and play Georgia. They lose that, they're not getting in. Again, I've been saying I don't think the loser of the SEC championship game gets left out. With 4 losses, you would. Let's call it spade a spade. With 4 losses, you would. Moneyball Control here says it comes down to conference opponent winning percentage. That's what it comes like. Playing Missouri and South Carolina this year helps, especially if South Carolina goes and wins within conference. I mean, would they lose 3 games in conference? So they're 5-3. Missouri's putting up good league numbers. If you don't want to have Kentucky, Mississippi State on your schedule from that perspective, and Vanderbilt, and that's where Tennessee. That's what happened with Tennessee. Their opponent winning percentage is not good because you played Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Vandy. That's a death sentence in these tiebreakers. More so because of Kentucky and Mississippi State. Let's call a spade there. But that's where it is. But good question. Money controls all. Appreciate you listening, brother. But it's kind of how the top race. What's next for A&M? Again, just the playoffs. I mean, playoffs for the rest of the year. Can't lose out. Got 2 opportunities. Alabama and Ole Miss would love to be in your spot. They don't control their own destiny. They need help. Texas A&M beat Texas at home. It's a 1-game shot against Georgia in Atlanta. You win it, go into the college football playoff, maybe with a bye. I don't know, but disappointing loss. I mean, it was a disappointing loss. Like overall, let's call a spade a spade. Is it backbreaking? No, because I do think Saturday night, Kyle Field. Again, I worked at A&M for 2 years, in 17 and 18 on Jimbo's first staff. I was at that Clemson game in the rain, Jimbo's first big game there against Dabo and them after they won the national championship the year before. No, they won the national championship that year. I'll never remember that. I'll never forget that. If they didn't put Kelly Bryant in over Trevor Lawrence, they would have lost. That was Trevor Lawrence's first real game experience there as a true freshman there. If Kelly Bryant, remember the Missouri transfer for you Missouri fans listening, if they didn't put him back in, they would have lost that game. Trevor was not playing well. He was a little overwhelmed, which I get it in that environment. Then I was at Joe Burrow's last loss, the 7 overtime. Right there on the sideline, assistant director of recruiting. It gets loud. It gets loud in there. I cannot imagine the environment is going to be Saturday night. I don't think A&M is going to play like they did against Auburn. Now, if they play offensively, they're going to win the football game like that. Obviously, they're not going to put up that kind of points because I think Texas is real. But that is what is next for the Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M, like I said earlier, Texas controls Big Blue. We'll run through this one. Texas beats Kentucky 31-14. Texas finally got the run game going because they committed to it, folks. 256 yards when you use sack adjustment numbers. I said it. If they commit to it, I think they can do it with Blue and Wisner. We saw it on Saturday, but can they consistently do it? I think it's going to be tough this weekend. Again, everybody knows that environment on Saturday is going to – this game didn't need any more implications on it, playoff opportunities. This game's big in itself. I haven't played it since 2011 when Justin Tucker put it to the uprights. But with the snap – A&M's going to have an advantage on the snap count there because I don't know how Texas is going to adjust on the road in this environment. They may do where the guard taps the center to snap, and that's easy to pick up on. But it is what it is. It's cohesiveness. But can they commit to it on Saturday in Kyle Field? I think they're going to have to run the ball well to win that game against a very good Texas A&M defense. I know they didn't play well against Auburn. I think they bounced back. Mike Elko never fields bad defenses. I've said that all year, even when they hired him. But phenomenal performance on Saturday. Quinn Ewers, just okay, but he took care of the football. And again, I love 0 turnovers. I love seeing that big donut in the turnover column. Quinn Ewers' final stat reads 20 of 31 for 191 with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. For the 9th time this season in the 6th consecutive game, the Longhorns defense forced multiple turnovers in the win. What's next for Texas? We talked about it. A trip to Kyle Field. If Texas loses this game, are they still in the playoffs? With all the just damage that is done in the SEC so far. They would only have 2 losses at that point. Bama would have 3. Ole Miss would have 3. South Carolina would have 3. A&M would be out. A&M would move to Atlanta at that point. Probably depend if A&M won the SEC championship. Let's be honest. I think that would be if Tennessee beats Vandy, I think they're in at 10-2. Georgia's going to be in unless they lose to Georgia Tech and A&M. And then I think Texas would be in. I mean, are you going to leave Texas out at 10-2? Would be interesting. I think all these losses, no. As bad as the schedule's been, I don't think you could. I think it'd be those 2. I mean, you're going to put a 9-3 Alabama who just got blown out by Oklahoma, a team Texas blew out 2 weeks prior. You're going to put in, and I know Texas played Florida with their backup, their third-string quarterback didn't play DJ Lagway, but still, Ole Miss and Alabama lost so late in the year. That's what – some things could happen to get them back in it. I don't know. I don't know if you could leave a Texas out at 10-2. I don't know if you could leave them out. Let's go to the comments real fast. Hans the Great. Even see Dave, brother. Saturday's a party. Congrats, man. Y'all got after their ass in all 3 phases. We talked about it to kick off the show. Go back and watch it if you missed it, man. Gave Oklahoma their flowers. Big win. That was a dominant performance by Britt Venables and them. I'm glad something happened. Honestly, I'm happy for him with all this personal stuff he's dealing with his wife. That's good. They went out at a phenomenal game plan. They did. Bo Molinari, I wish he had those OT rules back. Yeah, I'm with you. I know people, they thought they went too long, but those games are phenomenal. Now it's just sudden death, 2-point conversion over and over. Money control is all. Kyle Field will be crazy. Lots of man love in that place. Talking about jacked up trucks and measuring each other's pissing distance. That place isn't big enough for those egos. Ons the Gray. Hope the back is feeling better, brother. Those back pains get us in the mid-30s. Oh, dude. Story for another day on Saturday morning about that. Appreciate it, though, brother. How will they fit all those 26-gallon hats? Texas played no one. I do agree with that. Money controls all. That won't help them. They do have a huge audience. Yep, it is a business. Texas ain't running on Regis and Hicks. Turner, Stewart, and Scourton will pressure Ewers remaining. Howell and Williams will haunt them. I agree. I put in our prediction today. Go watch it. It's out. The preview video. Myself, Cole Thompson, and Chris Phillips put out the prediction video for Texas A&M. I think it's going to be different for Texas in this one. Again, in football, I'm usually the one that says 7 to 8 times out of 10 the better team wins. Home field advantage doesn't mean as much. This year it has. And again, this year it has. Just because it usually doesn't mean it doesn't this year. I think this is going to be loud as hell, guys. And Texas's communication, pre-snap penalties, A&M getting an edge on their snap count, getting that extra jump, Nick Scourton on the edge. That's going to be key in this game. If this game was in Austin, I'd feel a little different. You probably can lean where I'm going in this game. Just go check out the preview. I highly encourage you guys to do that. Let's get back to Kentucky real fast. Sorry. Just went through the comments. Kentucky, bowl streak's over. They were Mark Stoops, Kentucky, went to a bowl game in Lexington every year since 2015. As they say in the press conference, just got to scrap it up now. Cutter Boley, who played some against Texas, he's going to get the start versus Louisville. I don't know. Things just feel like they kind of ran their course in Lexington, right? It's kind of like they ran their course in Lexington with Mark Stoops. I don't know why. It just does. Again, missing the bowl game, really. I thought this team would be better. Again, they just can never get the quarterback spot right. But they do own Louisville. How do you get this team up for them? But they keep saying it in press conferences all week. You just got to strap it up. We will see if they do. Again, Boley, 5 completions, went for 15-plus yards. I thought he gave him some energy. That's why he took over against Texas, threw for 160 yards on 10 of 18 passing, 55%. The Longhorns entered with the number 1 passing defense. Thought it was a solid. What's next for Kentucky? I mentioned Louisville. I don't know. You just really disappointed in the Cats this year. Just again, like I said, it's kind of feel like it's ran its course in Lexington. With Stoops and the boys. Joe K, he's in, baby. Tech's probably in CFP even if they lose thanks to the Gators chomping Oklahoma. Yeah, you're right. I don't see them leaving out 10-2 Texas for a 9-3 Alabama or 9-3 Ole Miss or South Carolina. I don't. We got 2 more. LSU gets a must-have win. They had to have it. Must-have win over Vanderbilt. That would have just been a bad loss in Baton Rouge. It really would have. 24-17. LSU snapped a 3-game losing streak. That would have been 4 straight at home, topped off with a Vanderbilt loss. Just wasn't going to happen. So I felt pretty good. Just keep it simple, stupid. Braden Swinton told reporters after the game I saw, the defense ran just 5 different looks on Saturday night. Again, assignment sound football against Vanderbilt. Don't overcomplicate yourself. I told you, the book is out on Vanderbilt from talking to coaches around the SEC. DJ Durkin really put it out. I know they lost to Vanderbilt 17-7, but only giving up 17 points in today's modern college football. It's awesome. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive coordinators in the country, DJ Durkin. He'll have a hell of a game plan like Brent Venables did and Zach Alley did against Jalen Milroe. You bet your bottom dollar on that. But I think he gave the blueprint out. Clayton White followed it. Blake Baker did. Just, hey, man, just play your gap. You may not collect a lot of tackles today, but the guy behind you is going to make tackles. Again, Alabama played it terrible early in the season, but people have kind of started following Auburn's suit on that. On offense, it was just they ran the football. The rushing attack, unlike diversity in coordinators, Joe Sloan's playbook, I thought. Just going through my notes from rewatching the game. Nussmeier, 28 for 37, 332 through the air. Josh Williams in the backfield was great. He ended with 151 yards of total offense on 18 touches. Savion Jones and Braden Swinson were all over Diego Pavia. Pavia went 13 for 24, 186 and a touchdown. What's next for LSU? You got to beat Oklahoma. I think you need to have that win to finish it off. Brian Kelly brought up today some of the comments about how he wants to finish, how he wants to start building the roster. He says, we'll be very aggressive. We were in the transfer portal last year, put together a defensive line with minimal resources. Sounds like they didn't spend a lot of money. That was talked about early. We stayed, to use of a term loosely, well under the cap. We're also bringing in 16 mid-year freshmen and maybe the largest portal class as well. They're going to bring in a bunch of portal classes. Remember, they brought in Austin Thomas from Ole Miss, who helped bring that roster. He was my boss at Texas A&M. So I'm very familiar with Austin, one of the best evaluators I've ever been around, phenomenal organizer of a recruiting department. He's more an associate AD now, though, real making big shot calls. And here's Brian Kelly talks about it here. He says Austin Thomas, Frank Wilson, and himself do the roster management, with retention, player meetings. That's the first part. And he said the second part is ongoing recruiting process. So they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be aggressive in the portal. He says they're kind of hinted at bringing the biggest portal class in the country. Probably raise some more money than they need. But I'm going to call spade here, guys. Frank Wilson messed this whole up. I've said it. I thought LSU's personnel was going to catch up with them. I got a lot of hell in the offseason. It did on defense. I thought Blake Baker, Bo Davis were phenomenal hires. I think it's going to keep Brian Kelly, the head man in Baton Rouge, longer. He just made – Brian Kelly, I think, just thought this job was going to be easy. Hey, you're the only big school in the state of Louisiana, the only big school in the boot. We're going to collect the talent. It'll do itself. I trust Frank Wilson. All the beat writers, all the LSU people love Frank Wilson. He can help make recruiting decisions. Well, no, he's just a running backs coach. He's a phenomenal recruiter in New Orleans. He doesn't know squat about defensive players on that side of the football and building that roster. The first 2 years of Matt House, Frank Wilson, from talking to people over there, was making a lot of big shot calls on the personnel on the defensive side. It's why they've missed so much. Now, you're going to fix it with Austin Thomas, I think. But Brian Kelly, that's why year 3 has been a rebuilding year. When traditionally for him at Cincinnati and Notre Dame, that's his springboard year to either going undefeated, going to a Sugar Bowl at Cincinnati, or going to the national championship in 2012 against Alabama. I don't care what happened in that game. They made it to the national championship game. This is his rebuilding year, folks. Because of his mistakes, he's paying for the sins of his past from the first 2 years of trusting Frank Wilson and Matt House building the defensive personnel. Now, he saved it because I think Blake Baker, Bo Davis, and them are going to be phenomenal and bringing in Austin Thomas. But this is why they're struggling so much. They're finally playing catch-up. Hey, I think he's going to have time to get it right because of those hires. But that's why, if you want to know the truth, if you really want to know the truth, folks. Vanderbilt, they fight, man. They really do. Couldn't have got off to a better start for them in this game. Diego Pavia's 63-yard touchdown to Quincy Skinner Jr. got it, rocking and rolling. You're like, here comes Vanderbilt, man. Here comes Vanderbilt. I mean, Clark Lee and this team, I'm sure he'll put a similar performance up against Tennessee. They just fight till the very end and they don't go away, man. They don't. They're like kind of like Freddie Krueger a little bit. They don't ultimately get the job done a lot like they did against Alabama, but it is amazing. They just don't go away. Texas came down an onside kick. One-score game at the end where you thought LSU could go put it up 3 scores late in the end to put it away. Oh, no, it's a 24-17 final. South Carolina game was probably closer than the score indicated. They just don't go away, man. That's why I think Clark Lee should be SEC Coach of the Year, man. I think they're going to give Tennessee hell. Again, Tennessee hadn't really played consistent all year. Vanderbilt has consistently played people close. They will have a good game plan. I think Tennessee will probably win the game, but Vanderbilt's fighters, man. Vanderbilt is a bunch of fighters. Then the last one before we just go around the league quickly. Remember, we started an hour early tonight, folks, because, again, I want to watch the Maui Invitational tonight, Auburn, Iowa State. Feast week, I told you, favorite week of the season. We'll talk a little college basketball in just a minute, but that's why we're going early, just for everybody who is paying attention and just joining us a little late. Missouri hammers Mississippi State in Starkville. The scoop and score by Dalen Carnell just changed the game completely. I mean, it looked like Mississippi State kind of had some momentum, but that's when it went to hell from that perspective. Missouri hitting its stride late. I thought they played their best game of the year last week in a loss to South Carolina. In a loss, I thought they played their best game of the year. And after that fumble by Carnell, they kind of picked up where they left off. Cook, perhaps probably his best game of the season, 15 of 20, 268, included a 28-yard pass to Luther Burden. Phenomenal football, by the way. Missouri dominated on third down on both sides of the football. What's next for Missouri? They host Arkansas, trying to get to 9 wins. Would that be disappointing with the schedule and what you had in? No, because I had you going 9-3, guys. It's just if they go win their bowl game, it's back. It's an 11-win season and a 10-win season back-to-back. Hey, Elijah Drinkowitz may not be everyone's cup of tea. Again, you saw him yelling at the Mississippi State player, shut the F up or I'm going to score on you again. Thought that was a little classist, the whole we stand on business thing with Josh, him throwing Bob Stoops under the bus if they beat Oklahoma. I don't know. Eli's kind of corny, kind of dorky. But you know what? He's a pretty good football coach. Got the team rolling. I think they're playing their best football right now. For Mississippi State, what else do you want us to say, guys? They're probably going to finish 2-10, not win a conference game if they lose to Ole Miss on Friday. I thought they'd be more competitive, if I'm being honest, in this game. But again, I think that fumble was the backbreaker. What else is there to say? Future, I think the only blessing is you get to see Michael Van Buren play essentially a whole SEC season. So you're going to have a lot more stuff to go to in the spring. You can open up the playbook more. You can throw more at him where you're not holding his hand, because Blake Shapen, the quarterback who got hurt from Baylor, who I thought was a phenomenal first-year fit for Levy, by the way. If Michael Van Buren hadn't played a lot, you'd be just kind of dipping his toes into the water a little bit, like, hey, let's ease him in here in the spring. Now, dude, he's played in Austin, Texas. He's played in Knoxville, Tennessee. He will play in Oxford. And he's played in Athens, Georgia. He has as much experience going into a spring quarterback, not even competition. It's his job. Anybody can remember. So if you want to take any blessing in disguise, I think it's that. Maybe you get Ole Miss sleeping because their season's over. Maybe you do. Again, it's a kitchen sink game. I thought you'd throw a little more at Missouri, but it is what it is from that perspective. Let's go to the comments before we circle around the rest of the league quickly. Oh, sorry, start with Ons the Gray. I hope the Oklahoma momentum carries over to Saturday. Would love to take down LSU and Baton Rouge after the Burrow CFP loss. Money controls all. They went to the national championship game because Manti Te'o's fake dead girlfriend. Yeah, what was her name again? Lalea. What was her name? I forget. Somebody put it in the comment. I'd love to remember. Tennessee gonna kick the shit out of Candy Bill. Ons the Gray. I'm pulling for your Sooners versus LSU. Good win versus Bama. Money control is it all. So Missouri's best game wasn't enough to beat South Carolina. I just think South Carolina was playing really well, dude. I mean, go back and watch any of Missouri games. Even they struggled against Boston College. It wasn't pretty. Auburn, if it wasn't for Brady Cook having like an Adam Sandler, Burt Reynolds coming out from the longest yard to come back in the fourth quarter, they had lost to Auburn. Oklahoma, they won, but it wasn't pretty. They started Drew Pine. A&M, they got blasted in College Station. Well, I mean, that was their best game if you watched the game without just looking at the final score, I think. On's the great Joe. It reminded me of my first game in '97, but the blocked field goal against Syracuse. Never felt like that in the stadium again until Saturday. Lene, that's it. Lene Kaku. Thank you, Money Controls. All that was it. Lene. I said Lele, but hey, wasn't too far off. But let's go to the rest of the league before we get into little hoops. The rest of the league that we did not already talk about. We got Georgia getting a 59-21 win over UMass. Georgia didn't really separate until about the middle of the third quarter. I got asked today on a show, did I take much from that? No, I don't. Again, I don't take much from these FCS games, folks. It is what it is. Georgia, I saw, started doing their Sunday prep for Georgia Tech on Friday before the game. Because remember, Georgia Tech, who Georgia plays on Friday, good, clean, old-fashioned hate. That's the name of the rivalry. Georgia Tech had an extra. They played on Thursday against NC State, remember? So they had the extra days of preparation. I think Georgia Tech, they're confident they can win that game from talking to people over there. Know a couple people I worked on with the staff at A&M, the defensive coordinator. They're going to have a pretty good game plan. The line's 19. We'll look ahead to week 4. I don't think they're going to win the game, but it's definitely – we've seen Georgia struggle against lesser teams. Let's call a spade a spade. But Georgia did look ahead a little bit to Georgia Tech. I don't think they would care about me telling anybody that. Tennessee gets a 56-0 win over UTEP, who is 2-9. Another slow start, but again, you can't take a lot from this. Nico, 17 for 23, 209, 4 touchdowns. Again, I think they're playing for a playoff spot against Vanderbilt next week. South Carolina got a 56-12 win over Wofford. It looks like I didn't watch this game. Hadn't had a chance to go back and watch the game again. I'll be honest with you, probably not, just because it's the Terriers. But no offense to the Wofford fans out there. But didn't the Panthers used to do their fall training camp there, by the way? Anybody listening, South Carolina fans? Sounds like South Carolina struggled a little bit, just like Georgia, just like Tennessee. Tough to get fired up, but they also got the walk-ins in late. Arkansas, this was the biggest non-conference game I told you to keep an eye on. Sam Pittman and the boys going bowling, 6-5 now, 35-14 win over Louisiana Tech. Wasn't pretty at times, but still thought Taylor Green left some meat on the bone, but he got to 6 wins. I think Sam Pittman will be back if he wants to be. He has hip surgery planned for after the season, but from talking to people inside the building, one of my best friends, it sounds like he is preparing for this roster to be flipped over. He's already talked about potential official visits on New Year's Day. Because remember, transfer portal kids can come on official on the visit now 48 hours on New Year's Day. So I think he's going to come back. 6 wins was there, bearing than just getting totally blasted by Missouri on Saturday. That may change some things. I don't think it is. I think he's back from talking to people close over there. Sorry, this is Gino's bro. Sorry, refs made me change my name after these calls. Not talking about just Tennessee calls. Gump's damn auto correct. Scheduling an FCS team in November is like getting an extra bye. Kind of lame. Been missing you, Gump. All right, guys, let's talk a little let's talk a little college basketball, a little feast week. Like I said, it is my favorite week on the calendar, guys. So we got, again, that's why I'm getting off. That's why I started a little early. We got 15-minute tip-off, Maui Invitational, one of the best tournaments you could go to. But let's go check out the college basketball poll real fast. The AP college basketball poll came out. Just want to show it. Let me share my screen with you here, folks, so we can roll through it. Here we go. You got Ole Miss and Mississippi State in here as well. So let's get to it. Here we go. All right, here we go. So you got Auburn, highest rated SEC team. Again, you got a big game against Iowa State. That is a phenomenal Maui Invitational bracket. Then you got Tennessee coming in at 7-6-0 after winning their tournament, dominating Baylor in the championship game. The game wasn't even as close as the score indicated. We'll talk about that one here in just a minute. Kentucky coming in at 8-5-0. Alabama 4-1 after winning against Illinois last week at 9th. You got Florida coming in at 18th, 16-0. Arkansas 19th at 4-1. A&M in 20 at 4-1. Ole Miss coming in at 23 and Mississippi State at 25. So what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 SEC teams out of 16 in the top 25 right now. That's why. That shows you the depth of this league when both Mississippis are in the top 25, folks. That just kind of shows you the depth of this league in basketball this year, guys. It's a really good basketball league. And Auburn could do some damage. Remember, UConn took a loss. UConn lost to Memphis today. So they're at it. Auburn could play. So they open up with Iowa State here in just a minute, which would be, I think, the best game of the day by far. Let me show you the rest of this bracket. I'll read it out to you. We don't have to share it. Here it is. The Maui Invitational bracket. So here we go. So you had Memphis beat UConn already, Colorado, Michigan State. You got Auburn, Iowa State, and then Dayton, North Carolina. So Auburn could potentially play. They play Iowa State. They play North Carolina. And then Memphis has played well. I mean, they're D'ing people up, dude. They kind of locked down UConn for most of that game. This is the toughest Maui Invitational bracket I have seen in quite a while. Just wanted to preview that one. I kind of like Auburn to win it now with UConn losing. I would have liked UConn just like everybody else going into it. Next, we got the Players Era Festival. 2 SEC teams in that. You got Alabama in that and Texas A&M as well. They're both in different groups. Alabama's in the Impact group. They will play tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern against Houston on TBS. That'll be the game of the day tomorrow. And then Texas A&M, they'll play on Wednesday against Creighton. Ryan Kalbrenner and the boys at 6:30 on live stream on Max. Interesting. And then Bama will play Wednesday again as well against Rutgers. They got the 2 McDonald's All-Americans. Ron Harper's kid, and then Ace Bailey will be there as well, even though they lost to Kennesaw State and former Alabama assistant Antoine Petway the other day. So Alabama's 2 opponents already announced. A&M as well. They'll play Creighton, and then they will play in Texas. A&M plays Oregon tomorrow. Apologize. They play Oregon tomorrow. Then they play Creighton on Wednesday. Then they seed them. They just seed them, and the best records go and play on Saturday. So this is a Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday tournament where this is the first NIL Players Era where there's up to $9 million invested in this tournament to split between these teams. So it's an interesting first of its kind, really. 2 opponents are announced so far. Bama will play Houston tomorrow night. Then they'll play Rutgers on Wednesday night. A&M will play Oregon tomorrow and then play Creighton on Wednesday. And then, again, I think they're trying to avoid Bama played A&M. Obviously, they play in league play. They're trying to avoid Bama play Creighton because they play in 2 weeks. So I don't know how they'll seed it. Maybe Alabama plays Oregon or San Diego State in that next matchup. And then A&M's open to probably playing anybody outside of Houston in that next one. So probably either Rutgers or Notre Dame would probably be their next 2. So it'll sort itself out. Interesting. I'm interested to see how this one goes. It seems like it was a little underplanned, if I'm being honest, because they didn't know how to sort out that last game. It was going to be Notre Dame, but they switched it up for Alabama. Weird tournament, but for tomorrow night's matchup's going to be phenomenal. Houston, Alabama. Ken Palm has Alabama for losing this one is by 4 at a neutral site there. What did they say that official score was going to be? They had Alabama losing this one. And again, I'm a big Ken Palm guy, so remember that, guys. Ken Palm, they had Alabama losing this 78-74, giving Alabama a 33% chance to win this one. Remember, Auburn took down Houston about 2 weeks ago. They beat them 74-69 in the Toyota Center in Houston. Moving to the next tournament, we got the ESPN Events Invitational. That's where you will find the Florida Gators in that one across the board. This is the one in Orlando. It used to be bigger than this. There's only 4 teams left. You got Minnesota, Wichita State will play. They got Florida, Wake Forest. Hunter Salas, a really good player for Wake Forest. He's been their leading scorer. I think Wake Forest has lost 1 game so far. And then Florida, I mean, playing as good as anyone. Elijah Martin, Walter Clayton III, just doing phenomenal, really good basketball team right now. So this is a Thursday-Friday deal. So Florida will play Wake Forest for sure on Thursday at 2:30, and then they'll either play the winner or loser depending what they do on Friday. So they shortened this tournament a little bit. Then you got the Rady's Children's Event Invitational in San Diego. That's where you can find the Ole Miss Rebels. They'll play on Thursday against BYU, and then they'll play either the winner or loser, depending what they do, against either Purdue or NC State, 2 Final Four teams from last year. That was the semifinal matchup in the Final Four last year in Phoenix. But yeah, Purdue, NC State, Ole Miss, BYU. That's a Thursday, Friday thing with a championship game taking place at 6 p.m. Eastern. Next, you got the Arizona tip-off between Mississippi State. It opens up with the UNLV on Thursday on Thanksgiving night. You can watch that on CBS Sports. Butler, Northwestern, and then on Friday, they'll kind of split that. They'll split that up and then play, obviously, like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, like Ole Miss did. The winner plays the winner, loser plays the loser. But Mississippi State's in it. They'll open up against the Running Rebels, who are 4-1, and then they'll play either the winner or loser of Butler and Northwestern. Then we got the Fort Myers tip-off, which tips off tonight. We'll be reviewing that one as well. That will be right here. So here we go. We got South Carolina playing Xavier tonight. Xavier gave Wake Forest their only loss. That was their only loss. That's on FS1 tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Already tipped that one off. Again, other teams in that, you already had Miami of Ohio beat Siena. They didn't list a score on this one yet, but Jacksonville was in Mercer in this one. Michigan, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Xavier. So it looks like South Carolina will they play Xavier tonight, and they'll either play the winner or loser of Michigan, Virginia Tech, which will be a good matchup. Lamont Paris and the boys already have 2 losses to Indiana and North Florida. They need to get back on the winning side of things there. And then just some other games across the week. Let me pull it up. Other games across the week. Let's see, pulling up here my schedule tracker. Saturday night, like I mentioned, tonight you have Maryland Eastern Shore at Arkansas. That's already started. Again, Xavier, South Carolina, Auburn, Iowa State. Then you got Tuesday night. Again, like I mentioned tomorrow, you got Western Kentucky at Kentucky. Already mentioned Oregon, Texas A&M, Bama, Houston. That'll be the game of the night. On Wednesday night, UT Martin at Tennessee. Tennessee, remember, they were in the tournament last week. They won the championship against Baylor. Oklahoma at Providence. That'll be on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. Lindenwood at Missouri. And like I mentioned, A&M will play Creighton and then Rutgers, Alabama. And then on Thursday night, I mentioned Florida at Wake Forest. Arkansas at Illinois and Kansas City. That's the other matchup. Illinois lost to Alabama last week. Arkansas struggled with Baylor a couple weeks ago. So both these teams kind of need this non-conference win, but that'll be in Kansas City. Already mentioned BYU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, UNLV. They'll continue that tournament run. Friday, Tennessee Tech at Vanderbilt, Georgia State at Kentucky, Northwestern State at LSU, Delaware State against Texas. So kind of some teams are in tournaments, some aren't. But how about LSU? Speaking of LSU, how about LSU's 109-102 win in overtime yesterday against UCF? That was a phenomenal game. Went back and watched the highlights. Didn't want to recap this past weekend because we had so much to talk about. That's a big win for Matt McMahon and his team right there. Yeah. And then we got, and that'll wrap it. Let's see, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Friday, and then Saturday again we'll have the Players Era tournament as well as Jacksonville at Georgia, and that'll wrap us up for the week in college basketball. Again, it's early, guys. I'm gonna start coming at you with some live, rapid reactions from these tournaments. Again, my favorite week of the season. Had to touch on some college basketball. Here we go. Arkansas is a decent team. They can get hot. They can. They need Trevin Brazile to get back. They need to get comfortable in that lineup. Kind of figure out who the scores are. Been working nights, brother. Finally back to normal schedule, money control. Go Big Orange. Tennessee basketball going to be serious this year. They did look pretty good. They lost the big man, JP Strella, today. But, man, my guy, Chaz Lanier was on fire against Baylor. Money control is all as long as we don't play Foul Ming from Purdue in the Elite Eight. Yeah, good thing Zach Edey is gone. Joe K. If Syracuse hits their free throws, they beat Texas on Thursday. You were right. That would have been a terrible loss for Rodney Terry. Because, again, Trey Johnson didn't play that well. Tex played much better versus St. Joe's on Friday. Agree. Trey Johnson and Arthur Cumulin need to let their shots come and quit forcing it. Again, Julian Larry, I 100% agree with you. Move Larry to point guard, and Trey Johnson and then Kaluma are kind of forcing it. Joe K, y'all don't forget to like. Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, go to SEC Unfiltered, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It's the best SEC content around, folks. It really is. We'll react to tomorrow's college football playoff rankings live. Myself, Cole Thompson, Chris Phillips. We do previews for all the college football games. I'm your lead college basketball analyst. We're pumping that out now. We got my shows. Dave Talks Ball every Monday night, Thursday night, most nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, as long as there's not a Maui Invitational, right, folks? We got a lot going on. A lot. We react to every college football game immediately after on Saturday. Folks, we got a lot of good things going here. Guys like Joe K, Ons the Gray make this a phenomenal show, phenomenal channel to follow. I appreciate every one of y'all. Before we get you out of here, though, let's go look ahead to week 14 real fast. Starting on Friday, November 29th, we got 2 games. Remember, the Egg Bowl moved to Friday. Mississippi State at Ole Miss. 3:30 p.m. Eastern during the day on ABC. Ole Miss currently favored by 26, over under 61.5. I mean, my question would be, what is the motivation for this Ole Miss team with all these transfers? I don't think they're real invested in the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State's not going to win this game. I think Ole Miss could win this. This could be a pretty ugly Egg Bowl, in my opinion. I think Ole Miss wins. I just don't know how motivated this team will be. Georgia Tech, clean old-fashioned hate at Georgia, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Georgia favored by 19.5. Over under 53.5. A lot of familiarity in this one. Britt Key's been on an Alabama staff with some of these guys before. Buster Faulkner was a lead analyst for Todd Monken when they were both at Georgia, when Georgia was balling on offense. A lot of people think Buster Faulkner could be the next OC at Georgia once Mike Bobo goes and does his own thing. Tyler Santucci, my buddy, who I worked with at Texas A&M, he's the DC. He's aggressive. We'll see. I mean, again, I think Georgia struggled against worse teams than Georgia Tech before. Haynes King banged up. They played the other true freshman. Could be close. It's in Athens. I don't think Georgia Tech's going to win. This game could be closer than people think. Moving to Saturday's action, Tennessee at Vanderbilt, noon Eastern on ABC. Tennessee favored by 10.5, over under 48.5. Tennessee win. I think you're in the playoffs. Vanderbilt, though, has not gotten blown out by anybody. I think this game's going to be close. The 10.5 says it. 48.5 looks like a little lower scoring game. Time of possession leans Vanderbilt. We'll see. We'll see. It's be a bad loss for Josh Heupel if they miss the playoffs because they lost to Vanderbilt. I think Tennessee's going to win, but an interesting game. South Carolina at Clemson, one of the bigger ones of the weekend, noon Eastern on ESPN. Clemson favored by 2.5, over under 49.5. South Carolina's playing as good as anyone right now. I hear through people that Clemson's offensive line is pretty beat up. Advantage to a really good South Carolina defensive line with guys like Alex Huntley, Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard. Obviously, you know those characters. It's be a big win for Shane Beamer to get 9-3. He's right. If Clark Lee didn't get Vanderbilt to 6 wins, I think Shane Beamer's your coach of the year. South Carolina, this is a playoff implication game. South Carolina can sneak their way potentially if a lot of things break their way. And then Clemson could finish 10-2, and you're kind of sitting there forgetting, like, is this maybe the second ACC team? Big game here. Louisville at Kentucky, 12 noon Eastern. On SEC Network. Louisville favored by 3.5. Over under 48.5. Like I mentioned, Mark Stoops announcing they were going to start the freshman quarterback heading in, Cutter Boley. We'll see. Kentucky owns Louisville. We'll see if Jeff Brom can't get the win this year with Kentucky's bowl streak ending after going to how many bowl games are on it? 9, 10 in a row since 2015. They can't go to a bowl anymore after the loss to Texas. We'll see how they respond. Auburn at Alabama, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Alabama favored by 11.5. Over under 52.5. It opened up at 14.5. I see a path to victory for Auburn. I certainly do. I thought this game was going to be close the whole year. I think Auburn can get some things going in the zone run game, especially with Deontay Lawson, Alabama's green dot linebacker, being out for the rest of the year. I can see Alabama struggling. What's the motivation there under Nick Saban? I would know what I'm getting with the Kalen DeBoer team. I don't know. I mean, I think 9-3, disappointing, missing the playoffs this year. I said for first year for Kalen DeBoer, 10-2. Anything after that, after making the playoffs, is icing on the cake. Auburn probably smells a little blood in the water. They're a little overconfident right now. DeMarcus Riddick, a true freshman, said he guaranteed he was never losing to Alabama in his 4 years at Auburn. Maybe he doesn't stay all 4 years at Auburn. But saying he didn't think Ryan Williams was very good, thought he was faster than Jalen Milroe. Auburn's kind of talking the talk. You had Cam Coleman coming out saying it's a revenge tour. I don't know. Auburn wins one game. They're pretty confident. I mean, I think they have a path to victory. We'll see. Arkansas at Missouri, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network. Missouri favored by 3.5, over under 54.5. Missouri's playing really well right now, folks. And Arkansas secondary is terrible. I like Missouri at home. Florida at Florida State, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Florida favored by 14.5, over under 45.5. If Billy Napier were to erase everything he's been doing, You lose this game, I don't think you will. Florida State's checked out. Billy Napier smells blood in the water. And Doak Campbell, I think Florida will get this done. Oklahoma at LSU, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Line LSU favored by 6, -6 right now. Point total 47.5. Tricky game. Does Oklahoma kind of get over the emotion of beating Alabama again? I don't know why they stormed the field just like Auburn did. But LSU, what's the game plan? It's an interesting game to me that probably a lot of people won't watch. I'll have it on one of my dual screens, but it'll be interesting because I think people are going to forget about it because it doesn't have a bunch of implications. LSU's trying to get to 8 wins. Oklahoma's trying to get to, 7? Is what it is. Both teams have to go do some roster construction in the offseason. I don't really have a feel for this game. I don't. I'll get back with you later in the week. And then the big one, Texas at Texas A&M, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Kyle Field, Texas favored by 6. Point total over under 40.5. I can only imagine what the environment is going to be like at Kyle Field on Saturday. Like I mentioned, I was at Jimbo's first big one against Clemson in 18. I was in 18, the 7 overtime game, Joe Burrow's last loss, where they had to carry Joe Burrow off the field because he had full body cramps. That's where I had full respect for it. I was in the middle of Jimbo Fisher's nephew fighting Kevin Falk. This place I've seen at its best. I can only imagine Saturday night. I pay a lot of money to go there. And that's where our guy Chris Phillips is going to be. The last SEC Unfiltered tour stop, it's going to be in the Lone Star State Showdown, baby. It's going to be a really good one. It's going to be a really good one. I put my prediction out on the prediction video. Go check us out at the SEC Unfiltered YouTube channel. That's where myself, Cole Thompson, Chris Phillips put our predictions out. Go check that out. But guys, I'm 1 minute over. We got some Maui Invitational watch. Auburn, Iowa State. I'll be reacting live right after it. Guys, we went through a lot. Week 13 review. Brian Kelly, going to go real portal heavy, he says. We talked all the Feast Week conference tournaments. Auburn's in a big Maui. Bama A&M and the Players Invitational and the NIL tournament. Ole Miss in San Diego. Mississippi State out in Arizona. South Carolina out in Fort Myers tonight against Xavier. Some really good basketball. Arkansas, Illinois, Thanksgiving Day. We got phenomenal basketball this week, guys. Phenomenal basketball. We looked ahead to week 14. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff across the board, guys. It started an hour early, but remember, Dave Talks Ball usually Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, and Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. Started an hour early to get ahead on the Maui Invitational. Let's look real fast. Last few comments. Take A&M in the points now. That line's going to shrink. D. Sam has rushing touchdowns and total of 94. Kelly has some money because Underwood's money freed up. For sure. We talked about that last episode, guys. But I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Dave Talks Ball. Go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, guys. For Dave Shoemate, you have a phenomenal rest of your week. I will see you right now Thanksgiving night. So if I don't talk to you then, if you missed the show, I hope you have a phenomenal Thanksgiving week with your family. Phenomenal week. Greatest week of the year. Feast week. Rivalry week in college football. Doesn't get much better, folks. Have a great week and happy Thanksgiving.